Welcome back to a special edition of The Lead, live from New York. We're minutes from the first exit poll results here in the Empire State Estate, where at this point in the election cycle, there's usually not much on the line, but that is not the case this year on either side of the aisle. My panel is back with me now. Carl Bernstein, let me start with you. It could be pivotal for both Trump and for Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders.
It sure is. And the interesting thing is everyone keeps saying this is a bad campaign. I think this is a campaign in which we've discovered America that we didn't know about, and that we are learning that the electorate is restive in a way that we never thought, and we owe that because of Donald Trump and because of Bernie Sanders. Hillary Clinton has been pushed on the issues to somewhere where she never wanted to go, way to the left. And meanwhile, every other Republican has been vanquished except for Ted Cruz. And Trump can give Hillary Clinton a hell of a ride because of the way he conducts his campaign. And he has defined the issues in terms of America is not working. And people are responding to that message.
David?
I think, let's go back to the question of margin. I think it matters a lot tonight. If she wins by more than 10 points or so, I think Jennifer Granholm's point is absolutely on target, and that is that he ought to pull back. He's not going to win this, but he will have a price for his support. And if he handles this in a more gracious way, so he's not driving up her negatives, then I think at the convention he can debate and argue and negotiate for changes in the platform that will commit her more fully to the leftward positions she'd rather not take. But I think that's his way forward. On the other hand, if he comes within 5 points tonight and puts a scare into her, then I think it's going to be rock'em sock'em from here. It's going to be a tough race in Pennsylvania. It's going to be tough out in California. So a lot matters. A lot hinges on what the margin is. Out to be.
8 years ago, Maggie, let's put the number on the board. 8 years ago, Hillary Clinton won 57% to Barack Obama's 40%. Does she need to match that? Is that the number for her, 17 points, 57%, or is just a win a win?
I personally think a win is a win, and I think that on either side. I think if Trump clears 50% and does well in the majority of congressional districts, then he's won, and he's won well with delegates. The same is true on the Democratic side. For this reason, I think that number one of the most undercovered stories, I think, of this primary has been the fact that Hillary Clinton was very popular in this state when she was a senator, and she has, in the time spent at the State Department and in the years since when she's been out of office, a lot of those ties that she had with voters have sort of eroded, and so she's had to really rebuild them from scratch. I think that is part of what you're going to see in terms of the change. She is very affiliated with a president who a lot of liberals feel disappointed in, but I also think that...
Which one are you talking about?
I'm talking about President Obama. Wow.
Well, there were two there.
It's true. It was not an unfair question. But at the end of the day, I think that Bernie Sanders was going to keep going regardless. I think that if she won by 20 points, he would keep going. And I think that if she won by 5 points, he was going to keep going. He has resisted all calls until now. The math is what it is. It's not going to change. He raised $44 million or whatever it was. So I think he's going to keep going. And I think that he is unswayed by calls that he should get out for politesse and to help reshape the party. I don't think he's responding to that.
Ryan, what do you make of Donald Trump's continued complaining about the primary system on the Republican side and how it's rigged and not fair?
I think that actually, to give him some credit, he has actually shined a light on the fact that our primary system is it's unusual, right? Every state has its own rules. It's a crazy system. If you were designing a system from scratch today, you would never design the system we have, right? And it's for historic reasons, and there's been changes over the years, and mostly because every state gets to design its own rules. That's why it's so messed up. But having said that, he has benefited more than anyone from the non-democratic, small d, nature of the Republican primary system, right? He's won 37% of the popular vote, and he's won about 45% of the delegates. So that's not so bad. If he wanted a purely democratic system, he might not be doing so well.